Welcome to InVerse, the poetry podcast, the platform for purposeful poets. Today I'm joined by Samaya.
Yeah. Hi.
So how did you get into poetry?
I started writing poems and stuff about when I was in sixth form probably. So I always liked English anyway. I picked it at A-levels as well. But then the reason I got into poetry was just because I saw some stuff on Instagram that made me think, okay, maybe I'd be good at that. So then I started by writing like little, not even poems, like little phrases. And then I'll just keep them on my phone, and then it just sort of escalated into poetry.
Who would you say is your biggest inspiration from Instagram then?
Probably Faisal, the Smiling Act.
Okay.
I really like his work, and Conscious Rhymes. Yeah.
Wow, okay. So what are you performing for us today?
The first poem is about culture and religion. I just got really annoyed because I heard some things, you know, when you're like listening into a family conversation because you're not old enough to be in it yet.
Yeah.
So I just heard like little phrases and it just really annoyed me because that shouldn't be part of what's taken so seriously in a family, in a household.
Okay, yeah.
Especially when it gets mixed up with religion. I feel like it has really bad implications.
That's what is so important. It's like when people mix culture and religion, it annoys me so much.
Because sometimes it does overlap because there is religious influences, but other times they're so opposite.
Exactly, yeah.
That it shouldn't be like together at all. I grew up so confused about right and wrong, not in my own actions, but in social norms. See, at home it was different. Us girls are told to sit up but keep quiet, make tea for the guests, urge them to stay if they were tired. But since I was young, I've been surrounded by liars. They look deeply into my brown eyes and feed me their brown lies and tell me that their pale skin was more desirable than mine, that I wasn't beautiful because my nose was too wide, that it's normal for men to hurt you and not apologise, it's normal for men to be depressed but hide, it's not okay for a man to cry. The only flame a woman should feel was the fire on her stove, and if abuse happens within the family, it's a secret you keep until you're old. And then you take it to the grave. See, that's not the path I'm trying to pave. Culture and religion don't mix for me. One tells me to have humility whilst the other one humiliates me. If Islam is silk, culture can be seen as a rag dipped in poison because I'm just seen as a reproductive machine to provide sons for my husband. If the mother of believers placed so much importance on education and enjoyed poetry, on what basis does your uncle tell me that I don't need my degree? Maybe I'm going in too deep to a side of a culture that remains unseen, like telling your daughter to dial down her confidence in case it's seen as masculine or provocative, telling your son if he's not making 50k by 25 he's worth nothing, like telling a 10-year-old to put a scarf over her shoulders so men don't have something to look at. Maybe I'm going in too deep, so let's backtrack. We've got spicy food and intricate embroidery, and I can't deny that my culture is a part of my identity. Desi weddings are on Instagram with millions of views, but why can't we open our eyes to the real issues? We've got misogyny and colorism and domestic abuse. Let's not forget FGM and forced marriages too. Movements now are more concerned with freeing the nipple than forgetting to fight for the people. People being killed for daring to love across the border from their own homes. Girls living with the effects of being mutilated. People being abused and manipulated. People being oppressed and silenced to torture that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. So I'll ask you, when will it end? When will this cycle of protecting your extended family from their own actions be broken? When will it be okay to not pretend? Do you know how many dreams have been shattered by the one line, what would people think? I've heard this line so many times I might as well have it etched into my skin with ink, but then they'd see a hijabi with a tattoo and what would they think? We've gone from being God-fearing to community-fearing, keeping an eye on the time to avoid the neighbourhood watch. Because God forbid you're in the right place at the wrong time, you don't know who starts the rumours, but you know the rumours will fly. Behind the rows of colourful sandals, this is the real culture that lurks in the shadows. A home of fearful eyes and duct tape mouths, not knowing what hell will break loose if you speak out of turn. Because status in this culture can't be earned. It's determined by your gender at birth. My religion was never an issue for me. Islam gave us a status so lofty, so in my home it will be different. I'll look deeply into my children's eyes and dismantle all of those brown lies. No skin colour is better than another. Your facial features are beautiful like no other. You do owe an apology to anyone you do wrong, and it's okay to not always be strong. There's nothing emasculating about having to cry, and the flame you feel will be lit from the warmth within yourself. It is okay to ask for help. It's time to become teachers and not preachers. Time to actively make change instead of watching from the bleachers. Because if we don't, the future will only look bleaker. Use your words to uplift the youth instead of making them feel weaker. We'll have a generation of kids that are stronger, not ignorant to injustices spoon-fed to us as youngsters. You might feel like your mindset is a drop in an ocean, but a drop creates a ripple that creates a wave, and that wave will create a change for better days. Yeah.
Wow. That's the first time I've ever heard you perform, and it was actually amazing, mashallah. So where did your first kind of instinct to write that come from? Like, what made you, just crack and start writing about it?
The first thing was, do you know, like, all the bad stuff about culture, I feel like it comes out when there's marriage talks. Obviously, conversations were happening in the house, and then, like, there were little comments being made by extended family that just really got to me.
Like sexist comments.
Sexist comments,
Yeah.
but it wasn't just towards girls, it was towards guys as well.
Okay.
Like, he hasn't got a good job, how's he going to provide?
Okay.
But it's like, if people are trying to better themselves, you shouldn't be looking at their age and where they're at, because everyone's progress on a different timeline.
Yeah.
But I feel like...
And I feel like it's more important to look at deen than, like, you know, money and stuff like that. Because even, like, my dad says to me, he's like, I don't care if he works in a chicken shop. As long as he prays 5 times a day, khalas, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
People forget that blessings lie
Exactly.
in places that they're not looking at.
Exactly.
But yeah, those comments really annoyed me. And I feel like once you think of one, you just think of all the rest of them as well. And especially when they've been said to you or your family.
What kind of things have been said to you?
To me personally, or my nose... In my family, I'm the only one that has the wide nose, so I feel like aunties always
Alright,
comment
welcome
on
to
it.
the Pakistani nose, okay?
No, that was like, it sounds like such a small petty thing, but it can affect someone, and
100%.
someone who's not maybe as strong-willed, it could affect them quite deeply.
Okay, but let me just tell you, your nose is beautiful. Allahumma barik. There's nothing to need, like, there's nothing to change, okay?
Yeah, but even the stuff with little kids, like, I feel like people put pressure on youngsters to sort of mold them into something that they're not, just so that they conform with what they're expected to be. I don't think that's right. I think kids should have a little bit of freedom as well, because not everything is determined by your house.
Exactly, and I feel like kids they're not able to be kids anymore.
No, kids are growing up way too fast.
They're put into so many, like, social constraints. They're told to, like, be perfect before they even know who they are. And they're not allowed to, they're not given the opportunity to experience childhood.
Yeah, a lot of their emotions they're not allowed to be expressed as well. Like, oh my gosh, why are you crying? You're so weak. Like, come on, boys don't cry. Like, that sort of mentality can be so toxic to them as they grow
100%.
up. But it's a conversation that no one wants to have because they're still little kids.
So what other issues do you think surrounds culture and religion?
Another cultural issue that is really bad, I think, is when women get married, they're sort of expected to drop everything. Like, if you're
in terms of they should stop working,
education, career, everything is sort of like you have to drop that and make your husband and creating a family your top priority.
Exactly.
And I think in this day and age, that isn't what's going to happen anymore.
It's not realistic.
It's not realistic.
And also, I feel like the woman and man, they both provide nowadays. So
especially
it's kind of
in this economy. I'm
exactly,
sorry, but it's
like,
not going to work.
How are we paying for a house with one of us
especially
making
in
money?
London? Like, think about it. It's not realistic to even think of, okay, I'm the breadwinner, you're going to be at home.
And the stress that it puts on the man as well is crazy, and that's why we have a lot of men falling into depression, and they're not allowed to speak about it, and they feel like they cannot speak about it because they're men and they're not allowed to cry.
That's another topic
they're not allowed to have feelings.
I tried to touch on as well, because South Asian men and mental health is a topic that no one wants to talk about.
Subject,
even like mental health in general, but towards men, it's like it doesn't even exist, like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that needs to be spoken about so much more, and I feel like we need to change rather than just sort of brushing it under the rug.
Exactly.
Like, instead of letting your parents just carry on with the mentalities that they have, or your grandparents, you need to start changing the narrative that they hold as well. Even if they are older, obviously it's going to be harder.
How do you think we can change it?
For me personally, what I've been doing is just I expose them to a lot more stuff, like, oh my gosh, did you hear about this? Or what do you think about this? And just building conversation, showing them like, look, I understand that this is what you've been thinking for so long, but that doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
So I think
it starts from the conversation. You have to start with a conversation and let them know, things are changing.
And it's not always easy, but you do have to challenge them on certain things as well. But I feel like once you start doing that...
Especially when it's like your granddad or your uncle, you feel like you have to have so much respect, like you can't really say anything. But these conversations need to be... But
you can challenge them respectfully. Like, there's a way to go about it. Like, you can't just be like all up in their face.
A lot of elders are like, she can't talk to me about that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think as long as you've started the conversation, at least you've tried to start changing things.
So at least you've tried as well.
Yeah.
So what's your 3 best lines from your poem, do you think?
I think one of my favourite ones was the mother of the believers placed so much education importance of education and poetry. What basis does your uncle tell me I don't need my degree? Because the Prophet's wife, Aisha radiallahu anha, she was one of the biggest women scholars ever.
Exactly.
She opened a university. She even she enjoyed poetry herself. So I feel like the elders in our generation, they sort of place so much importance on these kind of things, but they're not as educated.
I feel like they pick and choose with religion as well.
They pick and choose what they want to implement.
Exactly. So it's like they're all bothered about the 4 wives, but what about the freedoms that we have? Do you know what I mean? And
I feel
the
like
choice that we're given.
Yeah, you need to look at your role models, because sometimes the things that they say can really disregard big people in Islam. So
people need to research and know what they're actually saying, and instead of like putting culture on top of religion. Okay, well, thank you so much.